we're going to continue using the thumb pattern that you learned earlier. This one on the A, D, E, and D string, and also the one on the E and D. And we're going to apply it to chords. So different chords will require different patterns. So the G chord has its root on the lowest string. So the most common pattern for a G chord would be the E string and D string pattern, back and forth like this. The E minor has the same type of thing. Notice how with both of these chords the root is on the low E string. So anytime you have a chord with a low note on the low E string, you're going to do that pattern. Okay? If the lowest note is on the A string, usually you'll do the A, D, E, D pattern, this one. Chords that use this are A minor, okay. C, you'll notice my finger moved, I'll come back to that in a second. And then, you know, different inversions of chords, so if you do like a G over B, where you're starting on the B note, things like that. So if you string the chords together in a chord progression, you can practice this pattern. So maybe start with 2 chords, like G. You don't have to play all the notes in the chord, you just have to put your fingers in place. And then go to E minor without stopping. Back to G. Okay. Here's A minor. Now we'll go back to G. Back to A minor. Maybe E minor. Doesn't really matter what chords you use, just get used to moving your hand and using the thumb. Now there's a couple of add-ons we can do with this. So for a D chord, the root is on the D string. Okay? So neither of these patterns really apply to a D chord, but there's a workaround for this. If you play the F sharp on the low E string on the 2nd fret, I like to use my thumb, but you could use this fingering if you wanted to. I prefer to use my thumb. Now you have a note where the root is on the low E string. So you can do that string skipping pattern between the low E and the D string on a D chord. So a common pattern you'll see using fingerstyle is G, D with an F sharp on the bottom, to E minor. So if we apply the thumb pattern, it would sound like this. Here's the D over F sharp, here's E minor. Okay, you can also walk up. Okay. Now going back to the C chord, the C, the low E fits in that chord, but the G note, which is the 3rd fret of the low E string, is generally a stronger note that most people prefer. So like what you'll do is play the A string and the D string, and then move your finger to the low E, and then your thumb will play the D string after that. So you're doing the A, D, E, D pattern, but you're doing it on the C chord, moving your finger back and forth. So okay, you could use an E, but that kind of changes the vibe of the chord. To me, it kind of sounds like an E minor chord a little bit. So when I play, I prefer a G, but you might feel differently. Experiment, have fun with it. So if we add a C chord to that G, D, E minor progression. Here comes the C. Maybe go back to G. So the whole point of this is use your thumb while fretting chords and start with that before you even get anything else in there with the other fingers. Just start by moving your left hand and getting used to that coordination. And in the next video, we'll apply the other fingers a little bit to take it to the next level.